He left, and never looked back. In his mind, that small Christmas town no longer held anything big enough for the dreams he believed he deserved. Not the farmhouse he grew up in, not the pine-scented fields that had carried his childhood, not even Kylie, the girl who once waited for him with hope shining brighter than the holiday lights. Back then, he thought she wasn't enough. Back then, he thought more was out there waiting for him. So Ryder walked away, chasing a life that didn't include her, didn't include home, didn't include anything that truly mattered. But not everything unfolds the way we imagine. Success turned into dust. Dreams collapsed. And the man who once left proud returned to the only place he never expected to see again. Broken, ashamed, carrying the weight of every wrong step. Now, days before Christmas, snow falling softly over the old tree farm he abandoned, he's about to face the woman who stopped waiting long ago. And this time, he's not the same man who walked away. And she is no longer the girl who would have followed him. This is a story about humility, second chances, and a love resurrected by the quiet miracles of Christmas. Stay until the end. You'll feel every heartbeat of this redemption. Subscribe for more redeemed heart stories. Snow drifted across the quiet valley as Ryder Lancaster stepped out of the bus, shoulders hunched beneath a worn coat that didn't belong to the confident man he once was. The cold December air bit through the fabric, but he didn't flinch. Pain had a way of numbing everything. Ahead of him, the Christmas tree farm rose like a ghost from his past. Rows of pines dusted in white, glowing faintly under early morning lights. He hadn't seen this place in years. He hadn't expected to again. The gravel crunched beneath his boots, a sound so familiar it made his chest tighten. He remembered racing through these fields as a boy, dreaming of a bigger life, a louder life. He remembered leaving with that same arrogance, believing this town was too small for someone like him. Now it was he who felt too small for everything he had tried to build out there. Coming back wasn't part of the plan, survival was. The farmhouse looked almost unchanged except for the fresh garlands hanging around the porch railings. The scent of pine and cinnamon floated on the air, drifting from the small bakery attached to the main barn. Kylie's bakery. Ryder froze. He wasn't ready for this part. He had prepared himself for the judgmental stares of the townsfolk, for the disappointed sighs of old neighbors. But not for her. Never for her. He swallowed hard and walked toward the barn, each step echoing memories he had tried to bury. Memories of Kylie laughing as she decorated gingerbread houses during the annual fair. Memories of her cheeks flushed pink under the mistletoe he once refused to stand beneath with her. Memories of her eyes, hopeful, patient, too bright for the man he was then. He had walked away from all of it. And now the past walked beside him in every breath. Inside the barn, early workers moved briskly, prepping for the holiday rush. "Morning," someone said without looking up. Ryder's heart pounded. He wasn't sure if he wanted to be recognized, but the worker finally lifted his eyes and froze. "Ryder?" The name hung in the air, heavy, hesitant. Ryder forced a nod. "Yeah, it's me." The man's brows knit together, not with anger, but with quiet disappointment. It hurt more. The murmurs spread quickly. A few glances, a few whispers, a few eyes softening with pity. Ryder wished he could disappear into the stacks of wreaths and balsam firs, but he stood there silently, accepting every look, every unspoken question. He deserved all of it. Pride had carried him away once. Now humiliation carried him back, and there was no hiding from it. He stepped outside again, hoping the cold would steady him. Snowflakes brushed his face like soft reprimands. The sky, pale and silver, reminded him of winter mornings he had shared with his father, and the promises he broke to everyone who had once believed in him. He had left chasing a life that crumbled beneath his feet. Now he stood at the ruins, hoping this place could at least tolerate him. His stomach tightened as he approached the side door of the bakery, the one Kylie always left cracked open during baking hours. He didn't expect it to still be her habit, yet it was. Warm air seeped out, carrying that unmistakable aroma. Vanilla, brown sugar, cinnamon spice. The scent wrapped around him like a memory too tender to touch. He hesitated. He shouldn't go in. Not yet. Not like this. But then a soft voice drifted through the doorway. Could someone check the front counter? I think the hot cocoa is overflowing again. Kylie. Ryder closed his eyes. It was her voice. Older, steadier, wiser, but still laced with that warmth he had once taken for granted. For a moment he felt 17 again, standing outside the bakery praying she wouldn't notice how fast his heart was beating. When Kylie finally stepped into view, Ryder's breath caught. She wore a red holiday apron dusted with powdered sugar, her hair pulled back in a loose bun, a few strands framing her face just like they used to. She hadn't changed, and yet she had. There was strength in her posture now, a calmness earned through survival, not waiting. She froze mid-step when her eyes found him. The silence between them was instant, sharp, electric. Kylie blinked once, twice, but her expression didn't shift into shock or anger. Instead, she looked at him with a quiet steadiness that pierced deeper than any accusation. Ryder. She said his name like a fact, not a memory, like she had rehearsed this moment long ago and decided exactly how she would face it. He expected her to look away. Instead, she held his gaze with a calm confidence he barely recognized. "You're back," she said simply, wiping flour from her hands. No trembling lips, no nervous shuffle, no hope flickering in her eyes. That hit him harder than the cold. She had truly stopped waiting. And now he was the one left searching for something to hold on to. Ryder forced a nod. Just for a while. His voice cracked slightly, betraying the months of exhaustion. Kylie seemed to catch it, but she didn't ask questions. She didn't soften. She didn't move closer. Instead, she crossed her arms gently and stood her ground, like a woman who had rebuilt her heart brick by brick and didn't intend to let anyone walk through those walls again. "Mom will want to know you're here," Kylie said, turning toward the kitchen. "She always said you'd come back someday." Ryder exhaled slowly. Mrs. Holden had always believed in him, even when he didn't deserve it. Kylie paused at the doorway, glancing back just once. She didn't say it would be before Christmas, but she said it wouldn't surprise her. Her words stung and comforted him at the same time. He followed her inside quietly, unsure of where to stand or what to say. The bakery buzzed with holiday rush, trays of sugar cookies cooling, gingerbread men lined up like tiny soldiers, peppermint bark stacked in festive tins. Everything was bright, warm, alive. Everything he wasn't. Kylie placed a tray on the counter and wiped her hands again. "If you're planning to stay on the farm, you should talk to Mr. Holden. He'll decide where you can help." Her tone was professional, almost detached. Ryder nodded, even though the words felt like invisible walls pushing him farther away. She wasn't being cruel. She was being distant, which somehow hurt more. He wanted to apologize, to explain, to tell her how everything had collapsed in a single year. The business, the relationships, the pieces of himself he thought were unbreakable. But he couldn't. Not here. Not with people watching. Kylie sensed the storm behind his silence, but she didn't offer comfort. She had learned long ago not to pour warmth into places that couldn't hold it. Just as Ryder turned to leave, a single branch of mistletoe hanging above the bakery doorway caught his eye. The same spot where she once waited for a kiss that never came. Kylie noticed where he was looking, and this time her expression flickered. Not with hope, but with the echo of a wound she had already healed. She stepped aside, letting him pass. "Welcome home, Ryder," she said softly, and somehow it hurt worse than goodbye. Ryder walked toward the main field, where rows of evergreens stood proudly under layers of glittering snow. Workers moved between the trees, trimming branches, tying ribbons, prepping for the Christmas rush. The familiar sounds, saws humming, twine snapping, laughter bouncing through the cold air, wrapped around him like a memory he wished he could hide inside. But he was not that boy anymore. He was a man trying not to collapse under his own past. Mr. Holden emerged from behind a stack of freshly cut pines, his weathered hands gripping a clipboard. For a moment, Ryder froze. This man had taught him how to drive a tractor, how to tie knots on tree bundles, how to treat customers with kindness, even when Ryder believed he was destined for bigger things. Mr. Holden looked up. and the recognition surfaced slowly, like an ember rekindled under ash. "Well, I'll be," Mr. Holden murmured, eyes softening. He stepped closer, the snow crunching beneath heavy boots. "Ryder Lancaster, back in my field." His voice held no sarcasm, no resentment, just a quiet, fatherly warmth that Ryder felt he didn't deserve. Ryder nodded, lowering his gaze. "If you'll have me," he whispered. Mr. Holden didn't hesitate. He just placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "There's always work here," Mr. Holden said gently, "and always room to start over." Those words nearly broke Ryder. Start over. Could he? Was he even capable? Mr. Holden began explaining the tasks for the week, stringing lights across the north field, reinforcing stands, preparing for the annual Christmas festival. The tasks were familiar, but Ryder felt unfamiliar in his own skin. As they walked through the rows, Ryder felt the weight of every gaze following him. Some workers muttered greetings, unsure. Others kept their distance. A few offered sympathetic nods, the kind given to someone who had fallen from a great height. Ryder didn't know which hurt more, the pity or the silence. He kept his eyes on the snow, trying to breathe through the ache of recognition. The truth was simple. Everyone had heard. News travels fast in small towns, especially when someone once celebrated becomes a cautionary tale. They knew about his failed company. They knew about the betrayal. They knew he had returned with nothing. And perhaps worse, they knew he had once broken Kylie's heart. The shame crawled under his coat like ice. Mr. Holden assigned him to the lighting crew, a group Ryder once led with confidence and charm. Now he trailed behind quietly, adjusting wires, testing bulbs, doing whatever he was told. "Don't worry," one worker said with a careful smile. "These lights always give us trouble. No pressure." Ryder managed a faint laugh, grateful for the small kindness. The breeze carried the distant sound of Christmas carols playing from the town square. Their soft harmonies drifted through the pines, stirring memories Ryder wished he could silence. He remembered singing off-key during tree deliveries with Kylie riding shotgun, laughing at every broken note. He wondered if she remembered too, or if she had finally let those fragments fade. As he climbed a ladder to secure a strand of lights, Ryder's hands trembled slightly. Not from the cold. From exhaustion. Physical, emotional, everything. The fall from grace had cost him more than money. It had carved away pieces of him he wasn't sure he could get back. The crew noticed, exchanging quiet glances but offering no comments. He was grateful. Words would have shattered him. By mid-morning, Kylie's mother approached the field with 2 thermoses of hot cocoa. Her warm smile cut through the winter air like sunshine. "Boys, time for a break," she called cheerfully. The crew rushed toward her, thankful for the warmth. Ryder hesitated, unsure if he should approach. But Mrs. Holden waved him over with a motherly insistence that made refusal impossible. When he reached her, she handed him a cup without hesitation. "You look cold," she said gently, "and too thin." Ryder felt his throat tighten. Mrs. Holden had always treated him like a second son, even when he didn't deserve it. "Thank you," he whispered, wrapping his hands around the steaming cup. She studied his face for a moment, compassion shining in her eyes. "You're home now, dear. That counts for something." He nodded, unable to form words. The warmth of the cocoa seeped into his fingertips, a small kindness that felt almost unbearable. Mrs. Holden leaned closer. "Kylie saw you this morning." Ryder's heart stumbled. "She's different now," her mother continued softly. "Stronger, wiser, but she hasn't forgotten how to care." Ryder exhaled shakily, unsure if that was hope or punishment. After the break, Ryder returned to the lights with renewed determination. He wanted to prove he wasn't the same man who walked away. He wanted to earn back trust, and not through words, but through actions. He worked quietly, carefully, refusing to cut corners. Each bulb he tightened felt like a tiny attempt at repairing something much bigger than a strand of lights. As the sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the fields, Ryder stepped back to admire the long string of glowing bulbs stretching toward the barn. It wasn't perfect. One section flickered stubbornly, but it stood. Just like him, barely, but standing. Not bad, a worker said with a grin. Ryder offered a shy, grateful smile. It was the closest thing to pride he had felt in months. He took a walk toward the barn as evening settled in, hoping for a moment alone. But when he passed the bakery window, he saw Kylie inside, arranging peppermint cookies into red and white boxes. She didn't look up. She didn't sense him. She smiled softly at her own thoughts, humming along to the Christmas music playing in the background. She looked peaceful, beautifully, painfully peaceful. Ryder stepped back instinctively as if afraid to disturb the life she had built. Watching her like that, content, self-assured, no longer waiting for anyone, reminded him of everything he lost by chasing something that never mattered. He knew now. He had left behind the only person who had ever seen him clearly, and she had learned to live without him. The snow began falling again, thicker now, swirling in soft spirals as the evening deepened. Ryder shoved his hands into his pockets, staring at the lights glowing across the farm. He felt like a ghost drifting through his old life, visible, but no longer belonging. He wondered if he would ever feel rooted again, or if the consequences of his choices would forever cling like frost to his bones. Just as he turned toward the workers' cabin, a voice broke through the quiet. "Ryder." He spun around. Kylie stood beside the bakery door, arms wrapped around herself, breath visible in the cold. She hadn't planned to call him. He could see it in her eyes, but something made her step outside anyway. "My mom said you're helping with the lights," she said softly. "They look good." And for the first time in years, Ryder felt the faintest spark of warmth bloom in his chest. The next morning arrived wrapped in soft snowfall, the kind that made the entire farm look like a Christmas card. Ryder awoke before dawn in the workers' cabin, staring at the wooden ceiling as the memories from yesterday replayed in unwanted loops. Kylie had spoken to him, not coldly, not warmly, but with a simple civility that both soothed and twisted something inside him. He wasn't used to being treated gently anymore. He dressed quietly and stepped into the crisp winter air, following the familiar path toward the barn. The scent of pine filled his lungs, grounding him in a place he once rejected but now desperately needed. Workers were just beginning to arrive, brushing snow off equipment and stretching their stiff morning muscles. Ryder offered a few nods, still unsure if he belonged among them. But his feet didn't take him to the field. They carried him toward the side door of the bakery, the place he had avoided yesterday, the place that held more ghosts than he cared to face. Warm light glowed through the windows, dusting the snow with a soft amber hue. Inside, he could see Kylie moving between counters, her motions smooth, practiced, and beautifully steady. The sight pulled him closer like gravity. Kylie sprinkled powdered sugar over a tray of cinnamon twists, humming softly to a tune from the radio. An old Christmas classic, the kind they used to dance to during the late-night festivals. She didn't sway now, didn't let the music lift her. Her movements were purposeful, rooted. This was her world now, a world she had built after he left, a world she no longer needed him in. Ryder hesitated at the doorway, battling the instinct to turn around and hide, but retreat had already cost him too much. He exhaled slowly and pushed the door open. A small bell chimed, the same bell they'd installed together years ago, when the bakery was still just an idea. Kylie's shoulders stiffened slightly, but she didn't look up. "We open in 15 minutes, she said calmly. "It's okay," Ryder replied softly. "I'm not here for that." She paused, her hand lingering over a dough cutter. Then, with a breath that seemed carefully measured, she turned to face him. Her expression was neutral, polite. But her eyes, those same eyes that once lit lanterns inside him, held a caution he had never seen before. "Then why are you here, Ryder?" He swallowed hard. "I wanted to apologize for yesterday, for showing up like that, for surprising you." A faint hint of emotion flickered across her face, but she quickly dimmed it. "You didn't surprise me," she said gently. "This town always believed you'd come back eventually, whether by choice or by consequence." Her voice wasn't unkind, just honest. It landed heavier than any scolding. Kylie returned to her baking, rolling out dough with firm, steady strokes. Ryder watched silently, the rhythm of her movements calming and painful all at once. "You really kept this place going," he said after a moment. "More than going. You turned it into something beautiful." Kylie didn't look up. "I had to," she replied. "Life doesn't pause because someone leaves." Her words sliced with more truth than accusation. Ryder nodded, accepting the blow. He scanned the bakery, the Christmas garlands, the handwritten signs, the shelves lined with gingerbread houses decorated by local kids. Everything looked warm, joyful, alive. A stark contrast to the emptiness he had lived in for years. He finally understood what he had walked away from. "I'm not the same person I was," Ryder murmured. "I didn't come back expecting anything. I know I don't deserve—" He paused, realizing the sentence was too dangerous to finish. Kylie wiped her hands on her apron and looked at him fully. Really looked. "Good," she said softly, "because I'm not the same person either. And I don't owe the old version of you anything." There was no bitterness in her tone. Only boundaries. Firm, healthy ones he had once made impossible for her to hold. She stepped closer to the ovens, checking on a batch of peppermint brownies. "I don't say that to hurt you," she added quietly. "Just to make the truth clear." Ryder nodded. Truth was exactly what he needed, even if it stung like frostbite. The bell over the door chimed again, this time with the arrival of a customer, Mrs. Layton, one of the town's lifelong residents. She brightened when she saw Kylie and then blinked at Ryder, surprise rippling across her face. "Well, bless my heart," she exclaimed. "Look who's back." Ryder managed a respectful smile. Kylie simply handed Mrs. Layton her usual basket of pastries. "Don't mind me," Mrs. Layton whispered loudly to Kylie, though everyone could hear. "Boys leave, men return, but only the brave stay to fix what they broke." Kylie gave her a tight-lipped smile, refusing to let the words stir old wounds. Ryder wished he could disappear into the snow outside, but he stayed, because running was no longer an option. After Mrs. Layton left, an uncomfortable quiet stretched between them. Kylie began restocking the front display case, placing rows of gingerbread men wearing tiny scarves. Ryder crouched to help, sorting peppermint cookies into tins. Kylie didn't protest, but she didn't thank him either. Her silence wasn't cold, it was controlled, just like her heart now. As they worked side by side, the radio switched to a soft instrumental melody. "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." The same song that once played the night they almost kissed under the barn's mistletoe. Ryder stiffened. Kylie, without looking at him, whispered, "Don't read into anything." He let out a breath that fogged the glass display. "I'm not," he said, but he was. A gust of winter wind rattled the window pane, sending a shower of frost across the glass. Kylie straightened, brushing flour from her hands. "If you're going to be around the farm, you should settle things with your father too," she said. Ryder's eyes darkened. "He's not the one I'm afraid of facing." Kylie turned to him, gaze steady. "Then maybe you're starting in the wrong place." Her words struck deeper than any truth before. Because she was right. He hadn't come home to confront business failures or the town's gossip. He had come because something inside him had cracked wide open, a quiet ache that pointed him back to the only place he once felt seen. Kylie didn't know it, but she was the tether his broken soul had followed back through every storm. As Kylie opened the door for the morning rush, the bell chimed once more, welcoming the first wave of customers. "I have to work," she said softly. "And you have a day ahead of you." Ryder nodded and stepped outside into the cold. But before the door closed, Kylie spoke again, barely above a whisper. "Don't disappear this time." And for the first time since returning, Ryder felt hope flicker inside him like a Christmas light refusing to burn out. The afternoon sky dimmed early, as winter often commanded, painting the Christmas tree farm in shades of silver and quiet gold. Ryder worked alongside the crew, hauling bundles of evergreens to the loading area, his muscles aching from effort and from the weight of a past he could no longer outrun. He hoped exhaustion would silence the memories clawing at him. It didn't. Every breath seemed to carry a reminder of why he had fallen so far. The others chatted easily, their conversations drifting from holiday traditions to plans for the annual Christmas festival. Ryder listened quietly, rarely joining in. He felt like a guest in a place he once considered his entire world, a guest in his own story. He kept his head down, working harder than required, trying to earn space in a life he had abandoned long ago. At one point, the wind picked up sharply, sending a flurry of snow across the field. Ryder shielded his eyes, and for a brief moment the cold dragged him back to a different winter, a winter far from home, where everything began to fall apart. The memory hit with such force that he had to steady himself on the trunk of a tree. He inhaled sharply. Not now, not here. But the past had sharp claws. Later, Mr. Holden called him over to help secure a batch of trees for delivery. As Ryder tightened the straps, the older man observed him silently. "You're carrying something heavy," he finally said. Ryder stiffened. Mr. Holden wasn't one to pry, but he had always seen through surfaces. "Work helps," Ryder answered. "Maybe," Mr. Holden replied softly. "But sometimes the soul keeps limping long after the body stops." Ryder opened his mouth to respond, but movement near the bakery door caught his eye. Kylie stepped outside with 2 cups of hot cocoa, handing one to a younger worker who had just slipped on the ice. Her gesture was simple, warm, instinctive, so very her. Ryder watched, unable to look away. She was everything he had spent years pretending he didn't need. Everything he never deserved. The young worker thanked her shyly, and Kylie laughed. A light, melodic sound that cut Ryder more deeply than anger ever could. That laugh used to belong partly to him. He turned away quickly, forcing his focus back to the ropes in his hands. Mr. Holden followed his gaze and sighed softly. "She built a life, son," he murmured. "A steady one." Ryder nodded, jaw tight. "I know." Mr. Holden hesitated before speaking again. "People fall, Ryder. Some falls are louder than others, but this town believes in rebuilding." Ryder swallowed, feeling something warm and painful rise in his chest. He forced a nod, but rebuilding meant admitting the truth, the whole truth, something he had avoided even from himself. By sundown, the crew retreated to the barn for warmth. Ryder lingered outside, staring at the dimming lights over the field. Snowflakes drifted onto his coat, melting instantly, much like every fraction of stability he tried to capture in the past few years. He closed his eyes. The memories returned with merciless clarity. The investors, the betrayal, the lawsuit, the accident, the hospital bed. The moment he lost everything. The beginning of the end came with a partner he trusted. A man who smiled wide and stabbed deeper. Ryder had poured years into a business that was supposed to secure his future, build his legacy, prove he hadn't been foolish to leave the town. Instead, his partner siphoned funds, falsified documents, and left Ryder to take the fall. Overnight, he became the villain in a scandal he didn't create. Debt swallowed him. His reputation collapsed. Doors slammed that once stood wide open, and when he thought things couldn't spiral further, they did. One icy night, driving alone after another defeat, he lost control of his car. The crash flipped his world literally and figuratively. He woke up in a hospital with bruised ribs, a concussion, and no one sitting by his bed. The woman he had been dating, the one he thought would prove he'd moved on from small-town life, left when the money dried up. Friends he had trusted vanished. His name became a warning. Careful who you trust. The irony burned. The life he'd chosen over everything he once loved had betrayed him in the most humiliating way. Ryder rubbed his hands together, trying to warm them, though the cold inside him had little to do with the winter air. He thought of Kylie, the girl who had once waited for him with open hope, and how he had dismissed her love as too small for the future he imagined. But the future he chased had chewed him up and spit him out. And Kylie? She had grown into the kind of woman he wished he'd been wise enough to stay for. A soft crunch of snow pulled Ryder from his thoughts. Kylie approached, bundled in a thick coat, her cheeks pink from the cold. She stopped a few feet away, her breath forming soft clouds in the air. "You should head inside," she said gently. "It's getting colder, and the wind's brutal tonight." Ryder nodded, but didn't move. He couldn't, not with her standing there like a vision from a life he still loved. Kylie studied him quietly. Her voice softened. "Ryder, you look tired." He let out a small, humorless laugh. "That's one word for it. A long silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken pasts and fragile present moments. Kylie lowered her gaze. Is everything okay? The question caught him off guard. For years he had faced disaster alone. No one had asked about his heart. Not really. He inhaled deeply, the cold air slicing through his lungs. I messed up, he said simply. I trusted the wrong people. Lost everything. Lost myself. Kylie's eyes met his again, not with pity, but with an emotion he couldn't decipher. Gentle, sad, human. I'm sorry, she whispered. No one deserves that kind of fall. Ryder shook his head. Maybe I did. Kylie stepped closer by a fraction, her boots crunching softly in the snow. No, she said firmly. People don't deserve betrayal. They just end up in the wrong storms. Her words touched something in him, something raw and aching. He wanted to reach for her, to hold the warmth she offered so effortlessly, but his hands remained still, buried in his coat pockets, weighed down by guilt. I don't expect anything, Ryder said quietly. Not forgiveness, not a second chance, not even conversation. I just needed to be honest. For once. Kylie's breath caught subtly, as if his vulnerability had cracked something open inside her too. She nodded slowly. Honesty matters, she murmured, even when it comes late. A gust of wind swept through the trees, sending snow swirling around them like a fragile storm of glitter. Kylie hugged her coat tighter. Come inside, Ryder, just for a few minutes. Warm up. Her voice wasn't an invitation to hope, but it wasn't rejection either. Ryder followed her quietly, aware that this moment, small, cold, fleeting, carried the first fragile threads of redemption. The bakery's warmth enveloped Ryder the moment he stepped inside, the scent of vanilla and spice embracing him like a memory he both craved and feared. Kylie moved quietly to the counter, lighting a small candle shaped like a fir tree, its gentle glow reflecting off polished surfaces. She didn't look at him right away, giving him space to adjust to the sudden contrast between the freezing wind and the cozy interior. Ryder stood near the doorway, not wanting to intrude more than he already had. His gloves dripped melting snow onto the mat, each drop echoing louder than the hum of the ovens. Kylie finally turned to face him, her expression neither cold nor welcoming. Just steady, like someone preparing to walk through a room filled with old ghosts. Sit, if you want, she said softly. He obeyed without a word. She placed a steaming mug of hot cocoa on the table before him, the same drink she used to make for him when they were younger, with a pinch of nutmeg and extra marshmallows. Ryder stared at it, thrown off by the familiarity. You remembered, he murmured. Kylie shrugged lightly. People don't forget everything, Ryder, even when they want to. The truth in her voice stung gently. For a while, the only sound came from the ticking clock on the wall and the soft carols floating from the radio. Kylie leaned against the counter, arms crossed loosely, watching him with a mixture of caution and compassion. You said you lost everything, she began quietly. But I don't think that's the whole story. You didn't come back just because life got hard. You came back because life humbled you. Her words were not an accusation. They were a mirror. Ryder lowered his gaze, tracing circles on the mug. You're right, he admitted. I kept trying to outrun myself. Outrun this place, outrun... He hesitated, breathing deeply. Outrun what I felt for you. I thought leaving would make me bigger. Turns out, all it did was break things. Kylie inhaled sharply, steady but affected. You broke me too, Ryder. The words slipped from her lips with surprising softness, yet they struck him harder than any shouted anger could. He lifted his eyes, meeting hers fully. Kylie didn't flinch. I waited, she continued, longer than I should have. Years, Ryder. I waited for you to realize that home wasn't a limitation. That I wasn't a limitation. But you never looked back. Ryder's throat tightened. I know. And I'm sorry. Kylie shook her head gently. Sorry doesn't rebuild what was destroyed. It doesn't fix the nights I spent wondering what was wrong with me. Wondering why I wasn't enough for the boy I gave my heart to. She blinked, steadying her voice. Then one day I realized the truth. I wasn't the one who wasn't enough. You were the one who wasn't ready. The honesty cracked something inside him, a painful but necessary rupture. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words land in all the places he had refused to examine. "You deserved better," he whispered. Kylie offered a small, sad smile. "I learned to give better to myself. I learned to stop waiting." Her voice held strength, not bitterness. Transformation, not resentment. She moved closer, wiping flour from the counter even though it didn't need cleaning. It was a habit, something she did when conversations grew heavy. "And then you came back," she said softly. "Not the way I imagined. Not the way anyone hoped. You came back broken." Ryder nodded, unable to deny it. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to understand anything," he murmured. Kylie studied him, her gaze breaking through defenses he no longer had. "Do you understand now?" she asked quietly. Ryder hesitated before answering. "I understand what mattered, what I threw away, and what I can't ask to get back." His voice trembled with sincerity. Kylie's eyes softened for the first time in years, though she masked it quickly. "Ryder," she said gently, "I don't hate you. I don't even resent you anymore, but I built a life. A good one. A peaceful one. I can't just hand you a place in it because you regret leaving." Her honesty was like winter air, cold but cleansing. Ryder nodded slowly. "I know. I don't want a place handed to me. I want to earn anything, even your respect." Kylie leaned against the counter once more, exhaling deeply. "Respect is easier to rebuild than love," she said softly. "But both take time and consistency." He nodded again, absorbing every word like someone learning the language of repentance. "If you want to be here," she continued, "then be here. Show up. Do the work. But don't expect me to fall apart just because you're finally breaking open." Her words weren't meant to wound. They were meant to anchor him. He felt something settle inside his chest, a quiet resolve he hadn't felt in years. "I'm not expecting anything from you," Ryder said softly, "but I want to be someone you don't regret giving a second glance to." Kylie's expression softened just enough to let a flicker of warmth glow in her eyes. The front bell chimed as another gust of wind rattled the glass. Kylie checked the doorway, but no customers entered. Just the wind. She returned her gaze to Ryder. "Christmas used to be my favorite time of year," she murmured. "Then you left, and it became something to survive instead of celebrate." Ryder's heart twisted. "Maybe this year can be different," he whispered. Kylie looked at him for a long moment, searching for something. Sincerity, perhaps, or proof of change. Then she spoke quietly. "Different doesn't mean the same as before." Ryder nodded. "I wouldn't want it to be the same. You've grown. I'm trying to." Her lips curved into the faintest ghost of a smile. Trying is a start. A soft snowfall began outside again, the flakes tapping gently against the windows. Kylie turned toward the oven, pulling out a tray of gingerbread cookies decorated with tiny hearts and scarves. She set them on the counter between them, the warm steam curling upward like a breath of peace. "Here," she said, handing him one. "You always stole these before they cooled." Ryder took the cookie, feeling an unexpected wave of warmth fill him. "Some things don't change," he said quietly. Kylie rolled her eyes, but there was affection in it, buried but present. "Don't get used to it," she warned softly. "This doesn't mean anything." "Maybe," Ryder replied gently, "but it means I'm here, and I'm not running anymore." Kylie held his gaze, her expression unreadable. Outside, the Christmas lights flickered to life across the fields, casting the bakery in a soft, golden glow. "Good," she whispered. "Because running is what tore everything apart." She turned away, but not before Ryder caught the subtle tremble in her breath, a sign that, even if healing took time, something inside her was beginning to thaw. The next morning dawned brighter than usual, as if the snowfall had polished the entire landscape overnight. The Christmas tree farm glittered beneath the rising sun, its branches shimmering with frost like tiny ornaments crafted by winter itself. Ryder walked toward the main barn, his breath forming soft clouds in the air. Something inside him felt different, not lighter, but steadier. like a man finally stepping into his own truth instead of running from it. Kylie was already outside, stringing garlands along the bakery's porch railings. Her red scarf fluttered in the breeze, and strands of hair escaped her beanie as she worked with focused determination. Ryder slowed his steps, watching her quietly. She hadn't spoken much after their conversation yesterday, but something unspoken had shifted, as if a door once sealed shut now stood slightly ajar, letting in just a sliver of warmth. When she noticed him, she didn't look away. Instead, she gave a small nod, the kind reserved for acquaintances rather than old heartbreaks. But for Ryder, it was enough. He approached cautiously. "Morning," he said. Kylie tied the last ribbon securely before responding. "Morning," she echoed, her tone neutral but not cold. "Mr. Holden needs help with the north trees today." Ryder nodded, appreciating the direction. But before he turned away, Kylie reached for a box of ornaments, only for one to slip from her fingers. Ryder caught it midair with a reflex he thought he'd lost. "Still quick," she murmured. He managed a faint smile. Reflexes survived the crash. Her expression faltered for a second, a flicker of concern, before she tucked it away. Throughout the morning, Ryder worked alongside the crew, hauling fresh-cut trees, hammering stands into place, adjusting lights that had dimmed overnight. But every so often his eyes drifted toward the bakery, where Kylie moved gracefully between tasks, greeting customers, laughing softly, creating warmth in ways he never could. She was the heartbeat of the farm. He had always known that. He had simply been too blind to value it before. By afternoon, the preparations for the annual Christmas festival were in full swing. Families arrived to pick out their trees. Children ran through the rows wearing colorful mittens, and the smell of hot cocoa and roasted chestnuts drifted across the property. Kylie set up a small booth outside the bakery, selling gingerbread stars and peppermint fudge. Ryder was assigned to help string lanterns around the festival square. As he carried a ladder toward the center of the farm, he noticed a crowd gathering beneath the large wooden archway decorated with pine branches, fairy lights, and a single sprig of mistletoe dangling overhead. His steps faltered. The tradition slapped him with a rush of memories. The year Kylie had stood beneath the mistletoe for a full minute, laughing nervously, waiting for him. He had walked away then. He still regretted it. Kylie approached to hand out warm cider to volunteers, and she froze the moment she saw where Ryder was looking. The mistletoe swayed slightly in the winter breeze, mocking them with the past. Ryder swallowed, his chest tightening. Kylie broke the silence first. "It's just decoration," she said softly. But the tremor in her voice betrayed the truth. It wasn't just decoration. It was history. A group of children rushed beneath the archway, giggling and pointing upward. "It's the kissing spot," one of them squealed. Kylie's face flushed instantly. Ryder looked away, but the ache between them pulsed like a live wire. "We should move this," she muttered, stepping forward. But when she reached for the mistletoe, the small hook snapped loose from the arch. Ryder instinctively stepped in front of her, catching both the ornament and her wrist. For a moment, the world stopped. Snowflakes drifted slowly around them, the chatter of the festival fading into a soft hum. Kylie's breath hitched as Ryder's fingers gently held her wrist, their closeness igniting sparks neither of them were ready for. "Careful," he murmured. She didn't pull away immediately. Her eyes lifted to his. Guarded, conflicted, but undeniably drawn. He released her hand after a moment too long, stepping back with visible restraint. "Sorry," he said softly. Kylie shook her head, gathering her composure. "It's fine," she whispered, though her flushed cheeks said otherwise. She took the mistletoe from him, her fingers brushing his again, another spark neither acknowledged out loud. "I'll put this inside." But before she could turn away, Mrs. Layton, the town's most meddlesome elder, appeared with impeccable timing. "Well, look at that!" she exclaimed loudly. "Under the mistletoe again, Kylie nearly dropped the sprig. Ryder stiffened. The older woman clapped her hands. "It's tradition. You know the rules." Kylie opened her mouth to protest, mortified. Ryder stepped in quickly, offering a gentle smile to diffuse the situation. "It was an accident, Mrs. Layton." The woman raised a skeptical brow. Accidents don't happen twice in a lifetime. Kylie crossed her arms, cheeks glowing crimson. Please don't start rumors, she begged. Mrs. Layton winked knowingly. Honey, rumors only start when there's something to talk about. Kylie escaped toward the bakery, and Ryder followed at a respectful distance. When she reached the porch, she finally turned to him, eyes stormy with embarrassment and something deeper. This is exactly why I didn't want the mistletoe up, she muttered. Ryder nodded. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make things complicated. Kylie sighed, letting a cloud of breath dissolve in the cold air. You didn't. The past did. They stood in silence, snowflakes drifting around them like tiny pieces of time. Kylie studied him with a softer expression than before. Ryder, we can be civil. We can even be kind, but we can't pretend things never happened. He nodded. I'm not pretending, he said quietly. I remember everything. Kylie's eyes softened for a heartbeat. So do I. A gust of wind sent the Christmas lights flickering overhead, casting shimmering shadows across the porch. Kylie tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Just don't make promises you can't keep, she whispered. Not again. Ryder stepped closer, just an inch, but enough for her breath to catch. I'm not making promises, he said. I'm trying to live differently. Her gaze lingered on him, conflicted, but undeniably moved. She held the mistletoe loosely in her hand, its berries catching the light like tiny pearls. For a moment, Ryder thought she might say something else. Something dangerous, something hopeful. But instead, she placed the mistletoe gently inside a basket by the door. Let's get back to work, she murmured. As she turned away, Ryder felt something shift. Subtle, fragile, but real. The mistletoe hadn't brought a kiss, but it had brought truth. And for the first time since returning, he sensed the quiet beginning of forgiveness stirring between them, like the first light of dawn breaking through a long winter night. The evening settled over the Christmas tree farm like a velvet blanket, soft and shimmering. Preparations for the upcoming festival continued as workers hung lanterns, tested speakers, and checked every string of lights that wound through the rows of evergreens. Ryder helped wherever he could, his hand steady, but his heart unsteady. Every interaction with Kylie simmered beneath his ribs like warm embers he wasn't sure he deserved to feel. By sunset, the farm glowed with golden lights. Families lingered around the fire pits roasting marshmallows while children tugged their parents toward the ornament painting booth. Kylie stood near the bakery's outdoor counter, serving hot cider and laughing at a child's attempt to decorate a gingerbread man. Ryder found himself watching her, not out of longing alone, but out of awe for the woman she had become despite everything. Mr. Holden called Ryder over to help fix a malfunctioning generator behind the barn. The old machine sputtered and hummed like it had survived too many winters. Ryder crouched beside it, tightening bolts as Mr. Holden held a lantern to illuminate his workspace. How you holding up? The older man asked quietly. Ryder shrugged. Trying. Mr. Holden gave a knowing nod. Trying is the first honest step. They worked in silence until a loud pop echoed from the generator. The lights across the farm flickered violently. Shouts rose from different corners of the property. Kylie's voice carried through the air. Everyone stay calm. Ryder's stomach twisted. He hated chaos. It reminded him too much of the world he had barely crawled out of. Boardrooms collapsing, sirens, the aftermath of his accident. His breath quickened. The entire farm went dark for a moment. Just a heartbeat. But long enough to send Ryder spiraling back into memories he'd buried under miles of pride and denial. Cold metal, screeching tires, the feeling of weightlessness before the crash, the crushing silence afterward. His chest constricted. The darkness wasn't just around him. It pressed inside him too. Sharp and suffocating. Ryder! A voice broke through the storm in his mind. He blinked. Kylie stood before him, her lantern casting soft circles of light against the barn wall. Her brows were knit in concern, her breath visible in small, anxious bursts. Hey, she whispered, stepping closer. You okay? Ryder tried to answer, but his throat locked, his hands trembling despite the cold not being the culprit. Kylie knelt beside him, her presence steadying in a way nothing else had been since his return. "Look at me," she murmured. He did. Slowly, painfully. Her eyes held no judgment, only clarity, warmth, and something dangerously close to tenderness. "You're not there," she whispered. "You're here, on the farm. You're safe." Ryder inhaled shakily, grounding himself in the sound of her voice. He closed his eyes, letting her words anchor him. Kylie gently rested her hand on his forearm. Not a gesture of romance, but a gesture of human rescue. A gesture she had once given easily, but now offered deliberately. "Take a breath," she said softly. Then another. Ryder obeyed, the frantic rhythm inside him gradually surrendering to something steadier, softer. When he finally opened his eyes again, the panic had loosened its grip. He felt raw, exposed, almost foolish. "Sorry," he murmured, voice hoarse. Kylie shook her head. "Don't apologize for a wound you didn't choose." Her kindness disarmed him completely. He swallowed hard. "I didn't expect to react like that." Kylie studied him gently. "Trauma doesn't ask permission. It arrives, and it leaves in its own time." The generator flickered back to life in the distance, and the farm's lights began to glow again, one string at a time. A soft cheer rose from the workers, but Ryder barely noticed. He was too aware of Kylie, her closeness, her warmth, the way her breath fogged in the cold just inches from his. She withdrew her hand slowly, as if careful not to sever the fragile thread that now connected them. "You never told anyone what really happened out there, did you?" she asked. Ryder exhaled, the truth spilling out of him like the first crack in a long frozen river. "What was I supposed to say?" he whispered. "That I built a life on ego and ended up buried under it? That I trusted the wrong people and let them destroy everything I thought made me someone?" Kylie shook her head gently. "You don't have to explain it all at once." He looked away, ashamed. "Everyone here thinks I just failed, but it wasn't that simple." Kylie softened. "Sometimes complicated stories still end the same way, with someone hurting." Ryder's eyes burned. "I wasn't supposed to end up like this." She touched his arm lightly again. "No one plans their breaking point, Ryder. But broken doesn't mean beyond repair." Her words sank into him like warmth seeping into cold skin. For the first time he realized she wasn't speaking to the man he was. She was speaking to the man he could become. He met her gaze. "You've changed," he murmured. Her lips curled into a soft, almost bittersweet smile. "I had to." She paused. "And you're changing too. I can see it." A string of lanterns lit up above them, casting a soft glow across her face. Kylie's features softened, shadows blending with light in a way that made her look like every Christmas memory he wished he'd protected instead of abandoned. "Thank you," he whispered, "for grounding me." Kylie swallowed, her breath trembling ever so slightly. Everyone deserves a steady voice in the dark. The festival crowd began to reassemble as lights returned to full brightness. Children laughed again. Music resumed. But here, behind the barn, the world felt suspended. Quiet, intimate, as if carved out purely for truth. Kylie straightened her coat. "I should get back," she said softly. "People need help." Ryder nodded, though he wished the moment wouldn't end. Before she could take a full step away, he spoke again. "Kylie." She paused, turned. The snow fell gently between them, a curtain of shimmering white. "I'm trying," he said softly. "Not to undo the past, but to become someone better than the man who made those mistakes." Kylie's expression shifted, conflicted, hopeful, afraid to hope. "Trying," she said, "is more than you ever gave me before." A lantern flickered above them, casting a halo of gold over Kylie's hair. She stepped back, putting a safe distance between them, but her eyes lingered on his face with an honesty she hadn't allowed herself in years. "Just don't disappear again," she murmured. "This town can handle your mistakes. But She hesitated. "I don't break the way I used to. And I don't heal the same way either." He nodded, deeply, reverently, understanding exactly what she meant. Kylie gave one last delicate glance, then walked back toward the bakery, her boots crunching softly in the snow. Ryder watched her go, feeling both emptied and full all at once. The lights across the farm glowed steadily now, but it was the light she had sparked inside him, quiet, fragile, persistent, that felt like the first sign of Christmas hope. The night of the Christmas festival arrived wrapped in a hush that felt holy. Snow fell in slow, gentle flakes, dusting the tree farm in shimmering white. Lanterns lined the pathways, casting warm halos across the packed snow. Families trickled in from town, bundled in coats and knit hats, cheeks flushed. Children darted between trees with candy canes in hand, laughing freely. Christmas carols floated from the speakers, soft and familiar, like a memory. The entire farm seemed to glow with a light that came from more than bulbs. Ryder stood near the entrance, helping families secure their chosen trees to trucks. His hands moved steadily, tying knots he'd learned as a teenager on this very ground. Each thank you from customers landed gently in his chest, like tiny stitches. He still felt the weight of his past, but it no longer crushed him completely. Instead, it guided every humble gesture, every quiet act of service. He wasn't trying to impress anyone tonight. He was trying to show up, for the town, for the Holdens, and silently, for Kylie. Kylie moved like a ribbon of red and gold around the festival square. Her bakery booth was overflowing. Gingerbread houses, fudge, warm pies. She laughed with regulars, bent down to talk to children eye to eye, smiled softly. Yet, beneath the practiced warmth, she could feel a different tension inside her. Every time she caught sight of Ryder carrying a tree or helping an elder, it tugged. He wasn't the boy who had left, at least not entirely. Something in him had cracked open and she couldn't pretend not to see it. As the evening deepened, Mr. Holden took the small wooden stage near the big tree. "All right, folks," he called, his voice booming through the chilly air. "It's almost time for our tree lighting and prayer for the season." The crowd gathered, cups of cocoa in hand, murmurs fading into expectant quiet. Kylie stepped closer, wiping flour from her apron, heart thudding unreasonably fast. Ryder lingered near the back, unsure if he belonged near the spotlight anymore. But Mr. Holden's next words dissolved any chance of hiding. "This year," Mr. Holden continued, "someone very dear has come back home." Heads turned instinctively, and a subtle wave of whispers rippled through the crowd. Ryder felt every eye on him, every story already written in their minds. Mr. Holden gestured toward him with a gentle, fatherly smile. "Ryder, son, why don't you come say a few words?" Ryder's stomach dipped, his feet suddenly heavy in the snow. For a moment he considered bolting, but then he saw Kylie's face. She stood near the front, eyes locked on his, not pushing, not pulling, just present, steady, the same way she'd grounded him behind the barn. Ryder took a breath that felt like a decision and walked toward the stage. The wooden steps creaked under his boots as he climbed. The cold air bit at his cheeks, but his palms were burning. He gripped the edge of the microphone stand to keep his hands from shaking. The farm grew quiet, the only sound the distant jingle of a child's bell. "I don't have a speech," he began, voice rough but clear enough. A few people chuckled softly, easing the tension slightly. Ryder swallowed, eyes sweeping across faces he once knew, now older. "I left this town because I thought I was too big for it," he admitted. "I thought I needed something louder, brighter, more impressive than this." He glanced at the glowing trees, the snow, the people huddled close together. "I was wrong. About almost everything." He exhaled, breath trembling in the cold. "I trusted the wrong people. Built my life on the wrong things. And when it all crashed down, there was no one left standing beside me." His gaze drifted to Kylie, just for a heartbeat, then back to the crowd. "I hurt people who didn't deserve it. I walked away from love I didn't value. I can't erase what I did. I can't rewrite those years. But I can be different from this day forward." The air hung thick with his confession, raw and unpolished. He continued, softer now. "This place, this farm, taught me work and kindness, and I walked away like it was nothing. Like you were nothing." His voice cracked, shame and humility woven together. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm not even asking you to forgive. I'm just asking for the chance to live honestly among you again, to show you I'm not the same man who left." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Mrs. Layton raised her cup. "Well," she said loudly, her eyes misty. "I always said boys leave and men return." A ripple of gentle laughter followed, breaking the tension like thin ice. Mr. Holden nodded approvingly, clapping a solid hand on Ryder's shoulder. "That's what Christmas is about, isn't it?" he said. "Second chances." The crowd murmured in agreement, some nodding, some wiping at their cheeks. Ryder stepped back, overwhelmed, his heart pounding like a drum. Kylie watched him descend the stage, her emotions tangled and tender. She had waited once for words like those, years ago before he ever left. Now they came not as a promise, but as repentance. It was different. It was deeper. It was scarier. She didn't rush toward him, didn't collapse into his arms, but she didn't look away either. She followed him with her eyes. Something fragile and real stirred in her chest like a candle being relit. Mr. Holden led the crowd in a short prayer for the season. He thanked God for provision, for family, for community, for mercy. He asked for light in dark places and courage for broken hearts. Kylie bowed her head, the words soaking into old wounds like warm balm. Ryder closed his eyes too, not out of habit, but out of desperate need. The amen rose softly into the night, carried off by the drifting snow. Then the countdown began for the lighting of the big tree. 3, 2, 1. The crowd shouted together. The switch flipped, and the enormous tree burst into dazzling light. Strings of golden bulbs climbed from base to star, shimmering like hope itself. Children shrieked with joy, adults clapped, some hugging loved ones tightly. Kylie smiled despite herself, the beauty of the moment impossible to resist. Ryder stared at the tree, eyes reflecting the glow, throat tight. It felt like watching his own heart attempt to light back up. As the music swelled, people drifted into their own small circles. Some danced, some took photos, some simply stood and breathed it all in. Kylie slipped away from the crowd to refill trays at her booth. Ryder, overwhelmed, found himself walking toward the quieter rows of trees. The noise faded behind him, replaced by the soft crunch of snow under his boots. He didn't realize he wasn't alone until he heard footsteps behind him. "Running away again?" Kylie's voice teased gently. He turned to see her standing beneath a low-hanging branch. Snowflakes clung to her scarf, sparkling in the faint light from distant lanterns. "No," he said softly. "Just breathing." Kylie stepped closer, following his gaze upward. There, above them, hung another sprig of mistletoe, swaying softly. Her heart stuttered. Of all the trees, of all the paths they had wandered here. "Of course," she mumbled, half amused, half undone. They both fell silent, the weight of tradition hanging as heavily as the mistletoe. Ryder's breath came out in a visible, uneven cloud. "I didn't stand under it last time," he said quietly. "I was scared of choosing something real. Of choosing you." Kylie swallowed, her eyes shining with unshed feelings. "And now?" she asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He stepped closer, closing the distance that had once felt oceans wide. "Now," he replied, voice trembling with sincerity. "I'm more afraid of walking away again." He searched her face, giving her every chance to step back. "You don't owe me this. You don't owe me anything, Kylie. But if there is even a small place in your heart that hasn't closed completely, I promise to spend my life honoring it, not crushing it." Snow fell thicker now, turning the world around them into a soft white cocoon. Kylie's lips parted, her breath catching on the cliff of a decision. Slowly, she reached up and touched his cheek with mittened fingers. Her eyes held a mixture of ache and hope, scars and possibility intertwined. "I stopped waiting a long time ago," she whispered. "But I never stopped wishing you'd come back. Different." Then, under the mistletoe, in the quiet between heartbeats, she kissed him. It was not a rushed, desperate kiss, but a deep, warm, trembling one. The kind that says, "I see who you were, but I'm choosing who you're becoming." And in that moment, beneath falling snow and Christmas lights, Ryder finally came home. The morning after the festival dawned quiet, the kind of peaceful winter hush that feels like the world is exhaling after holding its breath all night. The Christmas tree farm glowed beneath a fresh blanket of snow, untouched and shimmering. Ryder stepped outside the workers' cabin, still feeling the warmth of last night's kiss lingering on his lips, in his chest, in his very bones. He felt humbled, shaken, healed, and terrified all at once. He wasn't naive enough to believe everything was suddenly fixed. Love didn't erase consequences, and one kiss didn't undo years of absence. But something had shifted. Something real. Something tender. Kylie had allowed a door to open just enough for hope to slip through, and Ryder woke with a determination he hadn't felt in years. He would prove worthy of that opening. Day after day, Christmas after Christmas. Kylie arrived at the bakery early, cheeks pink from the cold, hands cradling a thermos of cinnamon coffee. She spotted Ryder near the rows of furs and hesitated. Their eyes met. The memory of the mistletoe hung between them like fragile glass. She approached slowly, breath forming small clouds in the morning chill. "We should talk," she said softly. Ryder nodded. He wanted nothing more than honesty. Inside the bakery, the ovens were already warming the air with scents of gingerbread, vanilla, and peppermint. Kylie set the thermos down, fidgeting with her gloves. Last night was... She searched for the right word. Ryder held his breath. "Beautiful," she said finally. "But I need you to understand something. I didn't kiss you because everything is healed. I kissed you because something in me finally felt safe enough to try again." Ryder swallowed hard. "I don't expect anything from you that you can't give," he whispered. "All I want is the chance to show up, not with promises, but with presence." Kylie exhaled deeply, her shoulders relaxing a fraction. "Presence," she repeated softly, as if testing the weight of it. "That's what hurt the most when you left. You didn't just leave town. You left... us. Me." He stepped closer, but only slightly, respecting the space she needed. "I know," he said, voice thick with remorse. "And I can't undo that pain, but I can build something different now." Slowly, patiently, Kylie studied him, searching for cracks, for illusions, for masks. But what she saw was a man humbled by the world and reshaped by its storms. A man who finally understood love as something to protect, not escape from. The bell over the bakery door chimed as Mrs. Holden entered with 2 boxes of ornaments. "Morning, you two," she said cheerfully, her knowing smile widening when she saw how close they were standing. Kylie blushed instantly. Ryder tried, and failed, to suppress a small smile. Mrs. Holden winked. "Looks like Christmas is working overtime this year." Kylie gave her mother a warning look, but affection softened it. They spent the day preparing the last batches of holiday treats. Ryder helped decorate the gingerbread village, carefully placing candy roofs and powdered sugar snowflakes. Kylie watched him quietly, noticing the small things, how gentle his hands were now, how patient, how he listened instead of rushed. He moved through the bakery like someone grateful to be included, not entitled to belong. In the afternoon, they delivered gift baskets to elderly residents around town. Snow crunched beneath their boots as they walked from porch to porch, their breath woven with laughter and quiet conversations. At one house, a widow squeezed Ryder's hand and whispered, "Welcome home, dear." He blinked back emotion. Kylie saw it. Her heart tugged in a way that felt like forgiveness rooting itself deeper. When they returned to the farm, evening had already painted the sky in rose and lavender hues. The lanterns flickered on automatically, casting golden halos across the snow. Ryder paused near the same archway where the mistletoe had once hung. Kylie joined him, hugging her coat closer. "This place saw the worst of us," she murmured. "And now, maybe it's seeing the beginning of the best." Ryder brushed a light dusting of snow from the wooden beam. "I want to rebuild," he said quietly. "Not what we were, but something stronger. Something honest." Kylie's eyes softened, reflecting lantern light. "Rebuilding takes time," she reminded. "And patience." Ryder nodded. "I have time," he whispered. "And patience is something pain taught me, finally." They walked toward the barn, the soft glow of lights guiding their steps. Inside, the festival decorations still shimmered. Garlands, bows, wreaths, a half-emptied table of cocoa cups. Ryder inhaled deeply. letting the warmth wash over him. "I used to think success was somewhere far away," he said. "Now I realize it might look like this. Small moments, real moments, people who actually know your name." Kylie leaned against a wooden post, her breath slowing. "People who know your past," she added softly, "and still believe your future can look different." Ryder met her eyes, emotions swelling inside him. "Do you believe that?" She hesitated, not from doubt, but from weight. "I'm learning to," she whispered. "And that's something I never thought I'd say." A music box on the bakery counter began to play. An old, sweet Christmas tune, delicate as falling snow. They listened in silence, the melody weaving through the barn like a blessing. Ryder stepped closer, careful, reverent. "Can I?" he asked, offering his hand gently. Kylie looked at it, at the hand that once let her go, and then placed her own in it. They danced slowly beneath the dim lights, their breaths visible, their movements unhurried. No grand gestures, no passionate declarations. Just two hearts finding a rhythm that felt like healing. Ryder held her lightly, afraid to disturb the fragility of the moment. Kylie rested her forehead against his chest for a brief second, allowing herself to feel the safety she once longed for. When the music faded, they didn't step apart right away. Ryder brushed a snowflake from her hair, his touch gentle as prayer. "Thank you," he murmured. Kylie blinked. "For what?" "For giving me room to change," he whispered. "For meeting me where I am, not where I was." Kylie's eyes softened. "Change means nothing if you don't stay." Ryder nodded slowly. "I'm staying." Outside, the first star appeared over the snowy fields, shining above rows of evergreens like a quiet promise. Ryder walked Kylie back toward the bakery, their shoulders brushing, their steps in sync. When they reached the door, she paused, turning toward him with a small smile. "Merry Christmas, Ryder." He swallowed the weight of the moment. "Merry Christmas, Kylie." Before she stepped inside, she reached up and placed a new sprig of mistletoe above the doorway. Intentionally, openly, without hesitation. Ryder stared, breath catching. Kylie met his gaze, cheeks warming. "This time," she whispered, "I'm not waiting alone." He leaned in gently, reverently, kissing her softly under the mistletoe as snow drifted around them like blessings. And just like that, on a small farm wrapped in Christmas light, two hearts once broken found their way home. Together.